So go ahead and find yourself somewhere comfy that you can sit for a little bit, and we are just going to get started. If you have pets with you, let them join you because they love to relax. And tonight's class is a Yin class, which if you don't know what that means, it is basically, it's different than restorative yoga in the sense of we will be relaxed and we will be on the ground the entire time. We won't be standing up at all. But we are not necessarily getting to the point where we relax so much that we don't feel like we're doing anything. And so the thing that I like about Yin Yoga is that it forces you to kind of get to the edge of discomfort and sit there, which is what many of us do during the week, during our lives. And we get there and then we come back from there. And so what I like about Yin is that you get there and you sit there and you learn how to just sit there. And if you can't sit there, then you learn what it means to like back up a little bit, maybe back up a little bit more, and then move back in. So for me, it's helpful in the sense of sometimes there's emotions that we get to and then we run away from, but they keep finding us over and over. So Yin Yoga helps me when I'm kind of in that space, sit with the stuff and just be with it. Because as one of the favorite people that I like to read, Brene Brown says, it's only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness that we can step into our infinite power of light. And so one of the things about Yin is that if you can sit with the stuff for 3 minutes, then off the mat, you can sit with the stuff for 3 minutes and then maybe 5 minutes and then maybe figure out what you need to do with it. And so, yeah, if you feel cold right now, go ahead and get yourself something to add on because we are going to be sitting and relaxing in positions. And so you might get colder. And can you still hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my headphones did a strange thing, but we're good now. So go ahead and find yourself sitting. We're actually going to start in child's pose. And so if you have not done child's pose before, wherever you are, go ahead and move to your hands and your knees. And then wiggle around any way that you need to, any way that your body wants to. And just put your knees about hips width distance, your hands about shoulder width distance, and send your hips back towards your feet. So you are just kind of stretched out with your arms out in front of you. You might feel like you're sitting back on your heels, and then just press your head, let your head rest on the ground. If your forehead doesn't reach the ground, you can put something underneath it and just sit here in this, feeling what this feels like. And if you are brand new to trying yoga or you haven't tried yoga in a while, this might feel like very strange or like a giant stretch. Or if you just had a really long day or a really long week, you might notice that your back suddenly feels long for the first time. So we're going to spend a couple minutes in this position. And while you're here in this position, what I want you to do is just, as you inhale, see if you can notice how far down your back your breath can go. So as you're inhaling, imagining that you are tracing your breath from your nostrils all the way down your spine, as far down to your lower back as you can get. And then as you exhale, imagine that any sort of tension that you feel that is keeping your back from feeling fully relaxed can go back up your spine and out when you exhale. So do that. And as you begin to notice your breath a little bit more, you might notice that your back relaxes a little bit more. And if this position is uncomfortable for you, add something, move something, change something around so that you can feel comfortable. One of the things about Yin Yoga that's similar to restorative yoga is that you want to be comfortable, but you also want to feel something. And so some of the things you might want to add is something underneath your knees or something underneath your head. Or if you want to spread your knees out so that your body goes between your knees, that also can feel relaxing. So just keep breathing, noticing if you can feel your breath move all the way down your back and then all the way back up your back. And while we're here, I will just repeat the quote that we started tonight with from Brene Brown. just to think about what it means maybe for you to see how this quote might feel important to you. So again, the quote was, "Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light." And child's pose is a pose where we are both vulnerable and hidden at the same time. And so light and darkness can both find you here. And on your next exhale, begin to lift yourself back up so that you are kind of back on your knees, seated with your spine up towards the ceiling. And keep breathing. And maybe you feel a little bit more relaxed than you did a few minutes ago. If not, we will get there. And our next pose is going to feel a little bit less relaxing, but it's really going to help us start to wake up our feet so that we can begin to notice where sensation feels in our body from our feet all the way up to our head. So the next thing we're going to do is called toes pose, which you might hate. And if you do, I will give you something different to do. And so what you'll do is from sitting on your knees, go ahead and get kind of up on your knees so that you are kind of in a standing on your knees kind of pose, whatever this would be called. And flip your toes underneath your feet so that your toes are kind of underneath them, and sit back on your toes. And if that feels incredibly terrible to you and like you will never be able to sit in this for 3 minutes, change what you're doing. And what that can be is like just staying up like this on your knees. Or if you want to put something between your calves and what you're sitting on, you might want to do that. Or if you want to try just one foot like that, or if you just want to sit back kind of on your feet, because maybe this is a huge stretch across the top of your legs, do that. But the goal here is that we're going to be stretching out the bottoms of our feet and our toes in ways that we might not have ever done before and that might feel incredibly uncomfortable. But if this feels painful, change what you're doing. If it feels uncomfortable, you are doing the right thing. So go ahead and sit back on your toes. And again, try to focus on breathing, noticing if you can breathe into the strange feelings in your feet. And when you breathe out, imagine that it's almost over. And you might notice after a couple times of doing that, you'll just kind of get used to this strange feeling. And maybe you'll notice how long your toes are. Maybe you'll notice muscles or tendons in your feet you didn't exist because they now feel like they're screaming at you to change what you're doing. Just sit with it. And if while you're sitting here you notice tension in your neck or your shoulders, go ahead and drop one of your ears over to that shoulder and just breathe 2 times in and out, and then switch to the other side. And this way, as you're breathing, you might try to imagine that you're breathing all the way down from the ear facing up towards the ceiling, all the way down to your feet, and then exhaling all the way back up from your feet to your ear. And if you're feeling tightness in your shoulders, you might want to just tuck your chin to your chest and look down, or lean your head all the way to the back as the opposite of that. If you had one ear towards your shoulder and you want to switch to the other one, go ahead and do that on your next breath. And we are about halfway through this. So if you are sitting on your toes, know that you've made it halfway and you are almost to the end. And another great thing you can do while in this, if you're feeling shoulder tension, is try and reach one arm out to the side and then drop it and see if you can trace your breath all the way down from your shoulder to your fingertips while you do that. And twisting your arm around so that your palm is up towards the ceiling, either way, can also release tension in your shoulders. If you want to get real creative, you can do that while tilting your head to the opposite side of the arm sticking out. But it's Friday, so creativity is for Mondays and Tuesdays. All right, so on your next exhale, we're going to move from this pose. But before you do that, one of the most important pieces about Yin Yoga is remembering to move slowly. And so what I want you to do first is lean forward if you're sitting on your toes and place your hands on the ground. And then move forward and you might suddenly feel your whole foot in a new way. And just untuck your toes and like bang them on the ground or tap them out or do whatever feels right for your feet to kind of undo from what we did just now. And do that as long as you feel like you need to. And then we're going to sit back on our knees again. And the next pose that we are going to do is called saddle pose, which if you have really sensitive knees could be strange. And so I'll give us options. But if we're going to stay in this position, but if you have a pillow or anything squishy, put that behind you on your mat or wherever you are, because we might lay back on that if you would choose to do that. And so from this position, saddle pose is going to have us sitting on our feet again. We don't have to tuck our toes this time. And we are going to just lean backwards as far as feels comfortable. And you'll feel this stretch along the front of your legs and your hips and maybe up into the rest of the core of your body. And you'll just lean back until you notice a sensation that feels like about a 6 out of 10 on the scale of discomfort. And if this feels like too much, you can do this one leg at a time. So you can come back to where we started and put one leg out in front of you and lean back. And then I'll tell you when we're about halfway through and you can switch to the other leg. And if you can lean all the way back, that's totally fine. Just be careful that you don't feel incredibly uncomfortable in your lower back. And if you want to put more things under the back of you so that you can just lean back and lay on them, even if you're up higher, that's fine too. So we're just going to lean back. And the goal of this is to stretch the front part of your legs. But if your knees feel pain, change what you're doing. And ideally, you're seated between your heels. They're not necessarily on your heels when you lean all the way back. You're kind of between them so that they are on each side of your hips. And from here, begin as you're breathing to notice what it feels like to breathe into your hip bones. So notice if you can feel your breath going all the way down into where your hips are, where if you've been seated all day or part of the day, you're doing something very opposite from what you've been doing. So just notice what that feels like. And in each pose where we're lying at least partially on the ground, as you exhale, imagine that you're sinking into the ground and that your entire body is just becoming super heavy and you're letting anything underneath you just hold you. You don't have to do anything except breathe and lay here. And if you have one leg out in front and one leg behind you, on your next exhale, come back up using your forearms and your hands and switch which leg is bent and which leg is straight. If not, then just keep staying where you are, breathing and relaxing. Take 2 more breaths wherever you are. And on your next exhale, if you are laying back, go ahead and press into your forearms and move back up to where we kind of started, sitting on our heels. And when you are there, we will head to something next. And from here, our next pose is going to have us straighten out our legs. So if you have your legs underneath you still, go ahead and put them out in front of you. Maybe bounce them up and down on the ground, wiggle or do anything that you feel like doing with your body. In between poses in Yin, they often call these rebound poses. And basically a rebound pose is whatever your body wants to do, just do it for a second and we'll do something else. So the next thing we're going to do is called dragonfly. And so I can't do this without turning sideways, but if you have nothing on the right and left of you, you'll be fine. And so what we'll do is, with your legs out in front of you, go ahead and pull them to the sides. We're not trying to get into the splits or anything, but just spread your legs to the sides. And if you feel like you're sitting, like you're tilting in the way that doesn't feel right, put something underneath your hip bones so that you can feel like you can sit up tall without straining anything. And so from here, what we're going to do is place something on the inside of your right knee, whether that be a block, a bolster, a pillow that you can rest your arm on. And we are going to take our right arm out towards our right foot, kind of twist a little bit to that side, and then fold towards our right foot. And you can rest your arm on your leg if you want to. Just be careful not to rest it on your knee because we don't want to apply pressure for no reason. But just place your arm on something inside of your leg and just lean towards your right foot. And if this feels like a stretch that doesn't work for you on your left side, you can bring your left leg in and kind of have it be bent at an angle with your foot on the inside of your hip. I can't have both legs straight out today because my legs don't want to do that. There's a lot of tight something. So just lean over towards the right side. And you can, if it feels comfortable for you, drop your head down so that it can relax. But if that feels weird to have your head dangling, you might want to put something else under your forehead so you can just lie it down. Or you might want to just sit up. Whichever of those feels the most relaxing for you, we're going to do this for 3 minutes. And if you don't want to rest your arm on anything, you're also welcome to just grab your right foot and hold on to it. And your left hand can be either on your left knee, in front of you, behind you. It's not necessarily doing anything right now, so just let it do what it wants. And as you're in this position, if you want more of a stretch in your right leg or your foot, you're welcome to see what it feels like to flex and point your toe. If you want stretches in your ankles,
If you are comfortable just sitting with this, I encourage you to just sit here and notice what comes up for you in your body, where you're feeling this. If your left lower back starts to feel something along your side, if you're feeling it along your right inner thigh, or just breathing and noticing where you feel sensation, and try and breathe all the way into that spot, imagining that you're sending the air from the inside of your nostrils all the way there and back. And we're just over halfway through on this side, so if you're feeling the burn, know that you might get a chance in the next election and it's almost over. And on your next exhale, go ahead and come back up to seating in the center, sitting in the center, and just see what feels different on each side. See if you feel super stretched out on one side or not. Lucky for us, we're going to do this on the opposite side. So whatever you did on the right side, switch that over to the left side. If you have a bunch of props, move them over. And before we go to the other side, just move your legs in any way you want to get them to the other side. If you liked having both legs out and you want to just lean to the left with your right leg still out, you are welcome to do that. I can't do that today. So, and you might notice something, it feels super different on the left side than the right side. One thing that many yoga classes talk about is doing the same thing on both sides. But one of the pieces I like about Yin is it really takes in account that our bodies are not symmetrical, and you might be super stretchy on one side and not at all on the other. And you might be super stretchy today and not tomorrow. Any version of the pose is the pose. The point of this is that you're spending an hour on yourself, just breathing, pausing, and being here. So go ahead and inhale, and on your next exhale, lean over to the left side, doing the same thing, resting your left arm somewhere other than your knee, and just getting yourself into a position you can sit in for 3 minutes. If you enjoyed neck stretches at the beginning, you can tilt yourself to the left, but then kind of rest the left side of your face on something, and that might stretch out the right side of your neck. Or if you're looking straight down towards your knee, it might stretch the back side of your neck. But the focus of this pose is to kind of stretch out our inner thighs while also stretching out our side, and just letting whatever it is that is stressful kind of dump out of the top of your head as it rests down, and we just let things go. And if during this class you're finding yourself having a hard time relaxing, one of the things that I find helpful is that in poses where I can reach my feet, sometimes giving my feet a little bit of a massage on the top or the bottom helps me feel like I'm still doing the stretches and taking a break, but also gives me something to do if I feel like I need to move, but I'm trying to also stretch. So if that works for you, go ahead and give your feet or your toes a massage. If not, just relax. Take 3 more deep breaths, inhaling all the way to wherever you feel sensation, and then exhaling all the way back. And after your third one, we will come back up to seated, move into caterpillar pose. And so go ahead and bring both of your knees in and your legs back out in front of you. So if you didn't need to shift to the side, just bring your feet in and put them back out. And again, do the thing where you shake them out and do whatever it needs and bounce them up and down. And so caterpillar pose is basically just a forward fold. It's designed to stretch the entire back sides of your legs and your back. I need a lot of things so that I can fold forward and feel like I'm doing anything. So basically if you are incredibly flexible in your lower back, you won't need this, but whatever you have, put it on your lap in front of you as pillows or blankets. And then what we're going to do is just sit up really tall and then fold over as you're kind of hunching over as if you could reach your feet. So this is the sitting down version of a standing forward fold. And so each of us have different length legs and things like that. And so whatever you need to have in your lap or in front of you, or if you want to spread your legs a little bit and put things between your feet so that you can fold forward, we will just be in this for a little bit, folding forward and just letting ourselves kind of collapse into whatever we need to collapse into. And so as you inhale, we'll sit up. And as you exhale, just lean forward as far as you can go to the point where you can just relax your head on something and be in this position for the next little bit of time. And this pose can feel like a much more active pose than some of the other ones because many of us have really tight legs and really tight backs. And so one of the ways that I like to get into this where I feel like I'm holding something but also relaxing is I can reach my feet and I kind of just grab the outsides of my feet with my hands and hold on to them so that I feel like I'm kind of in a swing of my own body in some sorts. And that way I'm able to just relax my head on a bolster and a block and just notice my back and the back sides of my legs. And for this pose, I want you to notice what your forehead is resting on. And imagine that anything that you don't want to have to deal with is just dumping out of your forehead into whatever you're resting on. So as you're breathing in, you're imagining that your breath is going all the way down your back to your tailbone. As you exhale, things are coming out of your forehead, or if that doesn't work for you, you can imagine breathing down the back sides of your legs and releasing any stress out the bottom of your feet. Sometimes it's fun to visualize laser beams shooting out of our hands or our feet to get rid of our stress, just because it's fun. And sometimes during Yin Yoga, I find myself thinking about all the things I came to yoga to not have to think about. And if that's something that happens for you, I encourage you to just do that if it works for you. But if that's causing you not to relax, just imagine that you are putting those thoughts on a cloud or a wave and sending them away because they'll come back and they'll be there and you can deal with it then. Or if it's helpful for you to think about this without the distractions that you might have off of the mat, then think about it now. And sometimes in poses where we are bent forward and facing the ground, things can feel really emotional. And if that happens, just know that that is natural and normal and can feel really nice to just let yourself feel that. Take 2 more deep breaths, and on your next or your final, so your second exhale, go ahead and begin to inch yourself back up to seated, imagining that you're doing it 1 vertebrae at a time in your spine, as if there's a string on the top of your head pulling you up to sitting. And when you get all the way to the top, just notice and lift up your shoulders to your ears and roll them backwards a couple different times to just let your back move back into an opposite position, because we're going to be moving to our back next time. And so the next pose that we're going to do is called supported fish pose with butterfly legs. And so if you have yoga blocks, go ahead and put 2 of those behind you on this setting where they're sideways. One of them kind of at the top of your mat, and one of them where your shoulder blades will be when we lie back in a minute. If you don't have yoga blocks and you have a pillow, you can just lay that behind you as well. Either one is fine, and either one will stretch your shoulders and kind of let you feel a little bit open. And so first we're going to move our legs into butterfly, which what that means is just bending your knees and putting your feet together. You don't need to bring them super close into your body unless you really want to. Either one is fine. And you can just get yourself in a position where you can feel like you're wiggling and your legs are butterfly wings, and just, it could be fun to just fly for just a minute with your knees up and bouncing up and down. And then we're going to lie backwards. And as you begin to lie backwards from this position, whatever you have behind you, put it at your shoulder blades so that your shoulder blades are kind of resting on it. And then if you have 2 blocks like I do, your head will rest on the second one. And so you'll have something at your shoulder blades and something at your head. If you just have a pillow or something, then you are just lying back on a pillow. And make sure that you don't feel any pain in your lower back or anything at this point. If you do, change what you're doing or add more or remove some of the things underneath you if possible. And then with your arms, if you feel the need to get a stretch across your chest, you can move your arms all the way out straight to the sides, or you can put them in kind of goalposts where your elbows are bent and your hands are pointed up the same direction as the top of your head. And if you're laying on yoga blocks and you do goalpost arms, you might notice a really intense stretch right across your chest muscles. And if that feels uncomfortable, go with it. If it feels painful, change it. If you want more stretch in your shoulders, you can point your arms straight up above your head so that you're stretching them out. Or if none of that works for you, you can just put your arms down by your side. But we will be here for a couple minutes. And the purpose of this is to just kind of stretch out our chest and feel really open. This can feel like a really vulnerable position if you have a lot of emotions coming up. But I encourage you to just allow yourself to be held by whatever is underneath your back. Notice the way that your feet connect with each other in kind of a diamond shape. And just lie here, breathing, noticing if your belly starts to rise as you inhale and fall as you exhale. And if it doesn't, a way that you can try to get to that point of a deeper breath is breathing in and imagining your breath going down your collarbones into your chest and filling up your belly like a balloon, and exhaling that balloon slowly out from your belly to your chest to your collarbones. And do that for 3 or 4 times, paying attention to it, and then just let yourself breathe the way your body wants to breathe. And I'll tell us when it's time to move. And if you want to bring your feet in closer to your body to get more of a stretch in your legs, some people like to do that as well.
Moving back to that deep breath, take 2 more deep breaths where you feel your breath expanding your belly and then letting it contract as you exhale. And on your next exhale, begin to put your forearms next to your sides and push into them just enough so that you can lift up and move anything that's underneath your back off of your mat. And then once you've moved anything from underneath you, just lie back down and stretch out your legs out in front of you. And the next pose we're going to do is called Bananasana. I'm sure there's another name for it, but I don't know what it is. So what we're going to do is have your feet pointed straight out towards the end of your mat and raise your arms up over your head. And first, just stretch yourself as long as you possibly can from your toes to your fingertips. Just stretching and seeing how long you can possibly feel. And stretch, and as you're stretching, just hold your breath for just a minute and then exhale and just collapse into your mat. So stretch and then just collapse. And from here, what you're going to do is move our right foot over to the right side of our mat, keeping our legs straight, and then move our left foot next to it. And then do the same thing with our right wrist to the right side of the mat and our left wrist next to it. And so we're kind of in a banana shape, and you probably will feel this all the way along the left side of your body. If you would like to try something else or add something in, you can put one ankle over the other one. It doesn't matter which one, each of them gives you a different stretch. And you can grab one wrist with the other hand. Again, doesn't matter which one, each one's a different stretch. And just imagine that you are a banana. And so in this shape, we're stretching the entire side of our body and imagining yourself breathing all the way down to your feet, or if you want to breathe all the way up to your hands and then exhale down to your feet. Whichever way makes the most sense to you today. Just imagine when you inhale, there's like a light moving from one place to another. And when you exhale, the light is taking anything that feels dark and getting rid of it. And we'll be on this side for a few minutes and then we'll switch to the other side. And if you haven't tried crossing one ankle over the other and you want to, we're about halfway through this side and you are welcome to try that. Or if you want to switch which one's on top, just to see what that's like, try that too.
take one more deep inhale, and on your next exhale, go ahead and unwind your feet and let go of your wrist if you have a hold of it. And move your feet back to the middle, one at a time, and then your hands back to the middle again. And just take a couple breaths, stretching out again from your feet to your fingertips, feeling if you notice anything different between the two sides, feeling if you feel any emotions or any other sensations coming up. And then go ahead and switch to the other side. So move your left foot to the left side of your mat, followed by your right foot and your left hand to the left side. And maybe grab that wrist and cross the ankles if you want to. And just begin to settle into this side. Breathing down the right side of your body this time, noticing if that feels different. For me, on the right side, when I do this, my right hip, for some reason, always seems to feel a really big stretch, but the left side doesn't. And so maybe something feels super different for you. If I have been driving a lot, this pose feels great and terrible simultaneously because it's stretching a lot out. Just let yourself be here, laying here, stretching your body. And this is something that if you struggle with falling asleep at night easily, you might try doing in your bed or wherever you sleep, to just stretch out your sides and then fall into the state of relaxation. And we've got about a minute left on this side, and so if you want to switch which wrist is grasping which and which ankle is on top, go ahead and do that. If not, just stay where you are. Take one more inhale and exhale. And on your next exhale, go ahead and move back to the center line, uncrossing your feet if they're crossed, and moving your right foot back to the middle and then your left. And the same with your arms. And once you find yourself in the middle, it might feel nice to kind of windshield wiper your feet as if they're wipers, kind of just swifting side to side, just to kind of feel your leg all the way up from your foot to your hip socket, moving side to side. And our next pose will be our last pose before Savasana or resting pose. But before we get into it, I want us to do one more thing to stretch out our lower back. We're going to do a pose called Happy Baby. And so bring your knees in towards your chest as far as you can, and see if you can reach for the outside of your feet with your hands, and just grab onto those and spread your feet so that you can feel as if you're pulling your knees down to your shoulders. If you can't reach your feet today, grab onto the outside of your calves. You can grab the inside of your feet. If you want to reach more, you can grab your toes. Or if those don't work for you, just hold on to your knees and just rock from side to side, holding on to your feet, your ankles, or your calves, rocking side to side a couple times, noticing what your back feels like on the ground as you're doing that. And just do this for a couple more times, feeling your back on the ground, seeing if you can reach your feet today, pulling them in so that you can see if your knees can reach your armpits, noticing what that feels like. That's not what your body wants to do today, and that feels impossible. Just know that, again, any version of the pose is the pose. The point is that you are here paying attention to yourself. And once you feel like you've gotten what you wanted from that, go ahead and place your feet back on the ground with your knees pointed up towards the ceiling. Your arms can be wherever you want them to be. And we're going to do a twist on each side. And so there's a couple different options for this. If you want to just go ahead and inhale and exhale your knees over to one side, you can choose which side you start with. Do that. And you'll just allow them to fall towards the ground, trying to keep your shoulders or your upper body the way that it was. The only part of your body that's twisting is kind of your spine, and your knees are falling to one side. If you want a different stretch, you can bring your knees back into your chest and then allow them to fall to the side. And that might get a different part of your back stretched. Either one is a twist, but each one stretches different parts of your back. And if you brought your knees into your chest and then laid them over to one side, you might want to stretch the opposite arm directly out or put it back in that cactus or goalpost, and see if you can keep the shoulder on the ground that's opposite the knees that are away from it. And just see if you can feel kind of your breath moving from the fingertips of the hand opposite the knees that are on the ground, all the way down the side, down the hips, down the knees, and down to the toes of whichever leg is on top. And then exhaling all the way back up from those toes to your hip, to your shoulder, and out your hand. And if you tried one twist and you want to try the other one because you want to, go ahead and do that. But whichever one you settle into that. And that's where we'll be for a couple minutes on this side. And if you want to move your arm around, maybe pointing it above your head, maybe resting it on your knees, maybe just resting it on your stomach or your side, that's fine too. The goal here is to just feel a twist in your spine, and moving your knees in closer to your shoulder or farther away can change the way the twist feels. Whatever works for you, do that. Another option for your arm is to bend at the elbow and hold the back of your neck, kind of cradling the back of your head on the ground, and resting your left knee, if your knees are to the left, on your left hand on your left knee can also be an option. And as you breathe deeply in this pose, begin to come back to that inhaling and feeling your belly feel full, and exhaling and allowing it to sink. And as we focus on this, it allows us again to just relax even more, let our nervous system take a break from everything it has to do during the day.
Take 2 more breaths, and on your next exhale, or your second exhale, you'll untwist slowly, coming in slower than we got into this, moving our knees back to the center, pointing them up to the ceiling, and planting our feet back on the ground just for a minute, and moving our feet out to the edges of our mat, and allowing our knees to just fall into the middle. And what this does is it relaxes our lower back and just allows us to just take a break before we move to the other side. And if you want a moving break, you can kind of wiggle your knees or wiggle your legs or do whatever it is that your body wants to do before it moves to the other side. And when you're ready for the other side, again, you can point your knees up to the ceiling and just allow them to fall to that side. You can lift them up and bring them into your chest and allow them to fall to that side. And just get yourself in a position that you feel like you can be in for a couple minutes with your knees on this side. For me, I started on the left side and now I'm on the right side, and this feels completely different. I notice this in my lower back on this side far more than the other. Just get yourself in a position that you feel like you can breathe all the way down your side from your fingertips to your hips, to your knees and your toes, and back up. And then eventually notice the rise and fall of your collarbones, chest, and belly. And just settle in, knowing that this is the last stretch that we're doing before we relax and move into whatever you're doing after this. We're about halfway through this final side of this final pose. And so if you want to change anything about what you're doing so that you can feel a different stretch, go ahead and do that. And then just settle back in. And on your next breath, as you inhale, just begin to realize that you're about to move. And on your exhale, go ahead and move back towards the center, slower than you came in, being aware that although we're just twisting, we are stretching. So being careful with your body. And bring your knees back up towards the ceiling and move in any way that you feel the urge to. If you want to stretch your arms up over your head, stretch your feet out in front of you, you can do that. If you want to do happy baby again or something else, do that. Just give yourself a couple breaths to do whatever you want to do. The next pose is our final pose, which is resting corpse pose, Shavasana pose. And we'll be there for about 5 minutes. And so if you feel cold right now and you want to put a blanket on top of you, a sweatshirt, something else, grab that, get what you need. And then we're just going to rest in Shavasana for 5 minutes. And I will tell us when that 5 minutes is up. And if you want to stay there and fall asleep. But get yourself comfortable. Take a sip of tea, water, whatever it is that you have. And then just lie down and just allow yourself to relax more than you've even relaxed so far. And if you want to close your eyes, close your eyes. I'll let you know when it's been 5 minutes. And when I first started doing yoga, I did not respect or understand the point of this last pose, but really, Yin Yoga forces us to go deep into stretches sometimes deeper into our hips than we went tonight, and forces us to kind of stir some stuff up. And Shavasana is coming back to noticing what's been stirred up, noticing what feels different, and just letting yourself be with it, knowing that tonight you may be stretched in ways you haven't in a while and pushed your body in ways you weren't sure if you could, but you did. And in life, off of the yoga mat, you can also push yourself, take a break, and push yourself hard the next time, and you will be okay. I want to share another quote from a different person as we settle in for these next few minutes, and it's from Dolly Parton, and it says, "I know who I am. I know what I can and can't do. I know what I will and won't do. I know what I'm capable of, and I don't agree to do things that I don't think I can pull off." And I like that quote because it's her being in complete control of herself and also trusting herself and also being confident and grounded. And so, again, we started with thinking about exploring the darkness so that we can step into the power of our light. And we finished with a quote from someone who has most certainly stepped into their light and is currently saving the world by funding coronavirus vaccines. So settle in, let yourself rest, and just relax for about 4 more minutes. As you take your next couple breaths, just begin to remember what the room is like that you're in. Wiggle your hands and your toes and start to notice your body again, coming back to a place where you can move into your next part of your day or your bed. And on your next inhale, if you want to stretch your arms and your feet again, like we did at the beginning, stretch those out. And on your next exhale, open your eyes if you had them closed and carry on with your day.